YouTube and welcome in. I'm Deo, your local Polish cat, and today we are watching ridiculous scams that actually worked by the chat history. I'm not a scamuzel, alright? There we go. So please enjoy.
The most ridiculous scams in history.
Yeah!
Scams suck. While many are painfully obvious, like trying to get Meemaw to pay her taxes with Apple gift cards, some are extremely elaborate and require years of investment before seeing any kind of payoff. Others, however, it's like, come on, you really fell for that? And that's where our first story starts. Way back in the year of 1925, Europe was dealing with a rather sleazy and shady Austro-Hungarian man, one by the name of Viktor Lustig. Which one did you think I was talking about?
I feel like at this point for the history, we've been dealing with quite a lot of those kind of people, you know, over here. I could name at least 2 of them, okay? But I don't know if we should.
Anyway, Victor was one of those types of people who were always destined to become a professional scumbag.
Yeah?
He was born in 1890 to a loving and successful tobacco salesman dad who gave Victor many loving and successful smackaroos. But a little tough love wasn't going to get Victor down, so he pulled himself up by his Das bootstraps, went through boarding school, learned several languages, and turned to a life of degeneracy. He started out with petty theft and cheating in card games as a teen, but once he cut all ties with his family and moved out to Paris at the age of 19, that's when the little con boy became a con man. Side note, did you know that the term con artist is actually short for confidence artist? Yeah, it's because they have a knack for building up your confidence and trust before completely fleecing you. Thought that was a neat little fact. Alright, so
Am I a con artist then? Am I building up your confidence just to abandon you? Is that how it is? Guys, one day, when you will completely trust me, I will make a stream when I will be getting all of your confidence up. I will be saying how much of an amazing human you are. And the next day I'm gonna graduate, and you will never hear a word from me again. You don't know when it's gonna happen, but it's gonna happen eventually.
So throughout the 1910s and 1920s, Victor faced dozens of arrests for various scams, but never served any major time. He scammed luxury travelers by posing as a Broadway producer, defrauded banks, and even made his own magical money duplicator he called the Romanian box.
What?
Yeah, he would have potential customers load the machine with a special bill and a blank piece of paper, turn a few knobs, spin a few wheels, tweak a few nips, and bippy-boppy. A perfect copy. He even had the duplicate verified by a local bank as proof. The trick was that these were 2 planted, genuine bills. They just had their serial numbers altered to look identical. After giving the A-OK from the bank, Victor would then sell the box at an insane markup. The genius, though, was that even when some stupid assholes bought it, they couldn't report Victor to the police once they realized they were scams. I mean, what are they gonna do? Tell them that their counterfeit money printer wasn't
That is actually a genius. Holy.
working right? Funny enough, he actually sold one to a sheriff in Texas. Once the sheriff caught on, however, he tracked Victor down and cornered him. Of course, Victor charisma'd his way out of being arrested by bribing the upstanding lawmen with thousands of dollars. They were all counterfeit. Pretty embarrassing. But sales of his money machines happened few and far in between, so he needed to think bigger. And being positioned in Paris in 1925, the answer was right in front of him. No, to the left a little bit. There you go.
Yeah.
You see, the Eiffel Tower, as iconic as it is today, was never actually supposed to be a permanent thing. It was built for the 1889 World's Fair and was planned to be dismantled by 1909. So, by 1925, some local Parisians thought the rusty and weathered tower had overstayed his welcome. Victor had spotted a headline in the paper discussing the financial burden that the tower was, with expensive maintenance costs and such, but a particular line caught his eye, talking about how the government should look into selling the tower for scrap. This gave Victor an idea. He was going to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap. Not actually, but he would trick people into thinking he was. Posing as a government official, Victor invited a group of scrap metal dealers and gave a whole elaborate spiel about how the government wanted to scrap the tower. The deconstruction deal was to be done in secret so as not to freak out the French. Oh, très bon. They bought it, literally. Although it sounded a bit fishy, dealer André Poisson agreed to buy the rights to the monument for 70,000 francs, which, oddly enough, is only about $64,000 in today's money, which seems crazy cheap, but whatever. It was free money. Victor took the check and immediately fled to his homeland of Austria. Just like those scammed by the Romanian box, Poisson was embarrassed about being catfished, so he kept things under wraps. With no publicity surrounding the scam, Victor tried his luck again. Just a month later, he attempted to sell the tower a second time. But during this
That is just purely stupid, bro. You cannot pull out this kind of stunt once successfully and decide you're gonna do it again, bro. And all of his genius mind, okay, for stuff like this is purely stupid now. It is what it is, but you know, that is too much. That is too much.
Attempt, these scrap dealers weren't dealing with the scrap, so they called the cops.
Oh, uh-oh. Are you okay, Mr. French? I don't think he's okay.
Victor managed to escape and fled to the United States, but that's where his luck ran out. He was eventually arrested in a massive counterfeiting scheme in 1935 and was sentenced to 15 years on Alcatraz Island. He died of pneumonia in 1947, finally putting an end to the professional con man.
Sad.
If someone ever waltzes up to you with a bunch of cool-looking lotions and potions, save yourself the trouble and do a 360 and walk away. It's never a good time. But some more
wouldn't 360 put you back in the position of looking at him? So shouldn't you do like 180 and then go away? 360 in the moonwalk away. Okay. So you're just going away in a style. Okay, I gotcha.
desperate people looking for a bit of a pick-me-up may instead get to chugging. First introduced into the market in 1925, Radithor was touted about as a panacea. Panacea, for any non-JRPG players, is a universal medical cure-all originating from Greek mythology. Fixes any and all ailments: depression, bad cough, high blood pressure, backwards knees, even turning men's sad floppers into hardened showstoppers. Hey there, little guy. But Radithor was no such miracle. The mind behind this medical wonder was William John Aloysius Bailey, a Harvard University dropout who claimed that he was a licensed medical doctor. He was not. So what was Radithor? Well, I'm sure you smart fellas and fellettes can piece it together by the name. Radithor was a small dose of radium salts dissolved in water. That's right, radioactive water. Now, what you have to understand is, at the time, the science surrounding radium was not well understood, with the unstable element having only been discovered a few decades prior by Madame Marie Curie and her empty-bladdered husband, Pierre.
Let me listen again, okay?
Decades prior by Madame Marie Curie and her...
Can I crash out? Can I crash out on... No, or I shouldn't be crashing out on this. What is going on? That is... Maria Skłodowska-Curie. Skłodowska is her first last name. She was Polish, but because of how Poland looked during that time, she couldn't go there and she couldn't do research there, okay? And she married a French guy, but to keep doing researches and educate herself like this, she had to go to France. So, she didn't abandon her Polish last name because she wanted to be remembered as a Polish person. That's why it's Maria Skłodowska-Curie and not Maria Curie, okay? And that is something that is just a tiny bit disrespectful. And that is something that is the easiest way to make every Polish person that you know really crushed out, okay? That's not Maria Curie, that's Maria Skłodowska-Curie, okay? And probably writing Curie is easier than writing Skłodowska. Not talking about pronunciation, okay? Because pronunciating Skłodowska might be fucked up for people who are not Polish. But still. Bro, one of the stuff she fucking got, she called it Polon, from Polonia, from freaking Poland. Oh my god, I am so sorry, but that is that one thing that's pissing me off every time and pisses off every singular Polish person. Because that is not Maria Skłodowska, that is not Maria Curie, that is Maria Skłodowska-Curie, okay? Oh my god.
Her empty-bladdered husband, Pierre. While there had been some research showing promise for radium as a medical treatment, mainly its ability to shrink cancerous tumors, it still required extensive testing to potentially use radium in a safe and practical way. But that didn't stop enthusiastic and money-hungry doctors from prescribing the stuff like crazy. In the early 1900s, radium products were the hottest thing since commercially sliced bread, which actually wouldn't be invented until 1928. You had pills, syrups, powders, and foods.
If they did not teach it, how could someone know? Maybe someone was curious and looked it up, but for a lot of people, it's like if somebody would be talking to you per your second name. Like, yeah, it's part of your name is your second name, but it's not your first name. They didn't teach it? Why would they wouldn't teach it? Bro, that is literally that one thing. Okay, I may be mad, but still. Oh my god, that is so annoying. I know that a lot of people do skip Skłodowska when they are not Polish, purely because they don't know how to pronounce it, for example. And they do it out of quote-unquote respect, okay? And I would say that's even more disrespectful to just skip it, honestly, in my opinion. Because even if you're gonna butcher that surname, you should just try to say it. Even if you're gonna say it wrongly, it's better than not saying it at all. Oh! But then this kind of video that is researched. Because you cannot say all of it. You cannot, like, give the background for every person and not do, like, any research behind it. And then you have, like, one of really famous people. Like, Maria Skłodowska-Curie, and they didn't freaking say it. Like, they didn't research. They knew it, probably. I'm so... That's so annoying. That's so annoying. So annoying. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna check the comments after and see if there's any comments about it. But I don't think so. It's only Polish people who are saying, you know, talking about it.
Even radium underwear for the flaccid dudes. But the only thing worse than a radium gut were the radium suppositories that go in your butt. Yep, they're all real products, all real merch. You can see for yourself with a Google search. William Bailey over here, who was 0% doctor but 100% greedy, hopped aboard the Radium Express to Moneybag Junction. He produced Arium, radium tablets aimed at providing instant energy and strength, Linarium, a radium cream for aches and pains, Dentarium, a radium tooth powder, and finally Caparium for restoring hair loss. He wasn't very creative on the names. These products did not work well, but they sold really well, which is what mattered. So with all of the funding and momentum, he just kind of kept producing more and more radium-based products, which leads us to Radithor, William Bailey's magnum opus. As I said before, this was a small concentration of radium isotopes dissolved in water, guaranteed to give you approximately 1 microcurie of radiation straight to your system. It was essentially like lobbing a small radioactive grenade into your body. Radiation, by definition, is traveling energy, and that traveling energy just blasts through your tissues, your bones, your cells, and just wreaks havoc. 1 microcurie is equivalent to 37,000 radioactive decays per second. Think of it as 37,000 little razors going around and just fucking everything up. Every single second. Slicing and dicing chemical bonds, breaking apart your DNA, and just causing so much irreparable damage. Not good. Pretty far from the positive attributes that were promised, right? Well,
I'm kind of sad that none of the people got any, you know, magical powers or became a superhero or something. That is pretty sad if you ask me. Because of, you know, all of the superhero kind of movies and stuff like this, I always thought that getting radioactive stuff inside of you or something would be good because you would become a superhero. And I believed in this for a way too long time in my life. I was a stupid kiddo, you know.
Turns out it didn't even friggin' matter. According to the Museum of Radiation and Radioactivity, over 400,000 bottles of Radithor were sold between 1925 and 1930. This high number was due to the fact that Bailey gave direct financial kickbacks to doctors for prescribing the stuff. Sell a bottle and get a little bit of cash for yourself. This is technically illegal nowadays, but yeah, right. But didn't people get sick? Yep. The most high-profile consumer of Radithor was Ebenezer McBurney Byers, an amateur US golf champion and son of a wealthy industrialist. In 1927, at the age of 46, he was prescribed Radithor as a pain reliever after getting a boo-boo on his arm. But Bayer ended up going a bit overboard. Over the next 3 years, he would consume 1,400 bottles of Radithor. Initially, he claimed that it made him feel better, relieved the pain, and gave him a, quote, toned up feeling, but as time went on, this supposed placebo effect wore off, and the real effects of radiation poisoning started to become apparent. He lost weight, suffered pounding headaches, and began to lose his teeth. He stopped taking it altogether in 1930, but it was way too late. Just a year later in 1931, he was beyond help. Bayer's lawyer reported that his entire upper and lower jaws had been removed, save for 2 teeth. His bones had become brittle and holes formed in his skull. Tragically, he died on March 31st, 1932, with his now radioactive body being buried in a lead-lined coffin. Now, this is probably where you hope I talk about how Bailey got arrested, fined, convicted, yada yada yada. No such luck. The US Federal Trade Commission did issue a cease and desist for the production of Radithor, but could not legally force Bailey to stop. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, also did not have the power to pull the plug. They could only advise that people not drink the radioactive water. Bailey faced no legal consequence whatsoever. Facing public backlash after Bayer's death, his reputation was tarnished and he was forced to move on. He continued to sell radium-based products for years up until 1949. That's when he died. In some form of poetic justice, William Bailey died a painful death from bladder cancer as a result of his radium exposure over the years. Sometimes karma is a beautiful thing.
It is. It is.
This sad-looking sack of sideburns is the silly-named Scottish soldier Gregor MacGregor, and he's a bad boy. Already an accomplished military tactician, MacGregor achieved the rank of major in the British Army while serving during the Peninsular War. However, after an argument with a senior officer over, I don't know, British things, old Greg was discharged from service in 1810. Now disgraced and poor, he angrily sailed to South America to seek his fortune as a mercenary for hire. There, he used his military expertise to fight back the smelly Spanish during Venezuela's war for independence, ranking himself up to a brigadier general in the process. He even wifed up a very lovely cousin of the great liberator himself, Simon Bolivar. Nice work, Greg.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
But of course, the revolutionary effort started hitting a rough patch. Greg began losing ground in various Spanish counterattacks. By 1820, General MacGregor was forced to retreat into the Mosquito Coast. There, he met the anglicized Mosquito King himself, George Frederick. In case you were curious, he was not an actual mosquito, just king of the mosquito people. Anyway, the Wingless King, having a pre-existing cooperative agreement with MacGregor, granted him tactical authority over a sizable district of land positioned smack dab on Honduras' Bulge. The area, dubbed Poye, was a very real land grant to Greg, but his position put him at a disadvantage. After a string of military failures, he was effectively isolated, and being a mercenary, some of his allies had turned on him. So, while others saw success in their own revolutionary campaigns, Greg was forced to carve his own path to wealth and status. Now the proud owner of huge tracts of land, Greg got to work with a plan. Whether his intent was malicious or not is debatable, but what is known for certain is that Greg made several attempts to rub weenuses with some of the big financial bros of the age, the most notable being rich bald boy Nathan Rothschild.
Inconceivable!
Greg was looking for a direct cash injection to develop the area of Poye into a thriving town. But like a retirement home that lost its denture fund, no one was biting. So he traveled to London looking for more investors. At the same time, the newly independent countries of Peru, Chile, and Colombia were also looking for some moolah to tap into the region's potentials. They were able to secure funding through various bond issues on the London Stock Exchange. Now, here's a Financial Friday lesson for you. Learn about money, learn about cash. It's Financial Friday. The purpose behind a bond issue is to raise money for a larger project, like, say, developing a whole-ass country. Bonds are issued out by the owner, in this case, Gregor MacGregor. These bonds are then purchased by eager investors at a guaranteed interest rate that is set to mature at a later date, meaning that no more interest is paid out, and that bond can be cashed out for the original amount plus the interest. Essentially, you're tying up money in a project, but you're guaranteed money back, and then some for your troubles. Selling money to make more money. Rich people things. So with a bunch of rich folk finger blasts in South America with oodles of cash, there was a...
Yeah, I'm sorry, that sounded like too much of a rich people thingy for me. I just understand you sell money and then you get more money back. That's all I got.
Real craze going on. I mean, every investor believed that these countries housed untapped resources, so it was basically free money. And if there's something that any person drips their drawers at, it's free money. So with all this momentum, Greg saw his opportunity, but he needed to sweeten the deal a bit. He needed to have his land seem just as attractive, put together, and potentially profitable as the others. To do so, he donned a false name and authored an extremely detailed and overly embellished pamphlet advertising the wonders of Poye. The pamphlets boasted all kinds of features like overly abundant resources, rivers flowing with gold, endless sugar and tobacco, and a thriving colony with all the fixins. A full-blown cathedral, opera house, theater, royal palace, bank, a wawa or two, all the right things for a developing nation. So after gathering a small financial team and showing his formal land grant from the Mosquito King, alongside very little verification work from the London Stock Exchange, Greg was granted a
Bro, dude was literally LARPing in real life. Holy!
£200,000 loan, a modern day equivalent of nearly $44 million.
Oh.
Now, it's no surprise that some of his sleazy financial partners skimmed some of that money and skipped town, not wanting to stick around for the lie to unfold. But Greg was about to be forced to put his money where his mouth was. An eager group of about 250 settlers, including doctors, lawyers, and teachers, actually set sail for the supposed paradise that was Poye, hoping to reap the rewards of their investment. And with Greg needing to keep up the ruse, he was all, But arriving in spring of 1823, the settlers were disappointed. There was no opera house, there was no bank or palace or cathedral, there sure as shit were no gosh damn wawas. There was nothing. Nothing but thick-ass jungle. What the fuck? More than half of them died from exposure and starvation. Any survivors made their way back to London and exposed the whole scheme. With the illusion falling apart, Greg fled to Paris where, get this, he pulled the same scam, except, with Frenchier investors. He raised £300,000 with that stunt, but word got out and Gregor McGregor was formally arrested in 1825. Now, you'd think after defrauding a bunch of investors and getting over 100 people killed, that would get him thrown in the slammer, right? Now, because of his military reputation, he was actually acquitted and deported back to London. After his little slap on the wrist, he attempted the same scheme again on a much smaller scale, but luckily found no success. After 13 years of trying to get people to continue to invest in his spit of land, he gave up, packed up, and returned to South America. Now, despite all of his wrongdoings and his military losses and disgraces, he was actually welcomed back to Venezuela as a renowned war hero and prominent figure of the revolution. He was given back pay and a general's full military pension. He died peacefully and happily in Caracas at the age of 58, buried with full military honors. As for the region of Poye, it remains largely an undeveloped stretch of jungle to this day, ready to give any would-be adventurer a hefty case of swamp ass. In today's day and age, robots are all around us. They make our products, serve our food, save our lives, and even deliver our most discreet packages. That's my new leaf blower. That vibrates. But back in the days of yore, robots, or automatons, were something of a novelty. Created as far back as the 4th or 5th centuries BC, automatons performed simple, repeated actions in a mechanical loop. They were a wonder to look at, physical embodiments of engineering genius. All the cogs, gears, whistles, and wheels could captivate audiences who marveled at their complexity. Jump to the 1700s and automatons were getting a ton of attention. A bunch of master craftsmen were churning out stunning masterpieces. Swiss watchmaker Pierre-Jacques Dreux meticulously manufactured the musician, which played an organ, the draftsman, which drew one of 4 different images, and the writer, which wrote out custom messages using its cold mechanical fingers holding a quill. You also had obviously French and rather droopy looking fella Jacques de Vaucanson that created the digesting duck, which would eat pellets and subsequently shit out a poop a little bit later. Real compelling stuff. While absolutely impressive for the time, they still had their limits. They could only perform a small amount of pre-programmed tasks, unable to operate outside of their rather strict mechanical boundaries. But what if automatons could do more, like, say, interact with humans or directly respond to their environments? Hey,
Oh my
Ghost.
god, is it FNAF background story? Oh my god.
Logan, you could play. Well, it turns out Hungarian engineer Wolfgang von Kempelen wanted to create such a machine. Not for the general advancement of technology, mind you. Nah, he wanted to do it to impress an empress, the debatably beautiful Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. Already in her good graces by being a successful advisor, Wolfgang wanted to go the extra mile, maybe even get close enough to tongue punch her chin folds.
Oh!
After witnessing the Empress react favorably towards a fancy pants magician in court one day, Wolfgang made an outburst, pledging that he could outdo the illusionist. Using his engineering expertise, he spent months developing and constructing the Mechanical Turk. Invented in 1770, the Mechanical Turk was an automaton that could play real games of chess against real human players. The Automan was clad in Ottoman robes, complete with a silky smooth mustache and a turban to boot. The entire android was attached to a large desk which housed the seemingly complex mechanics within and a simple chessboard above. When a player challenged the Turk, the mechanical man was capable of reacting to any move in real time, picking up and moving its own pieces in response. This was something that was never seen before, an automaton that could think and react to its environment, which is cool and all, but this machine wasn't just playing chess, it was beating all of the top players within the Hungarian aristocracy. Naturally, everyone was astounded and Wolfgang succeeded in wowing the Empress, receiving cash monies and a political thumbs up, but no lickety of her split. However, as you'd expect, the Mechanical Turk was too good to be true. Although many audiences applauded, they had all been defrauded. It was all fake. So let's take a look at how this illusion actually worked. Before a performance, the mechanical cabinet would be opened and presented to viewers one door at a time. One side housed those impressive looking cogs and gears, but in reality they didn't really do anything. They more or less made illusory mechanical whirring and grinding sounds to add to the show. The other side appeared comparatively empty. But what spectators didn't see was a human chess master housed in a cabinet. Since it was only opened at one side at a time, the chess master would contort himself to opposite sides, remaining out of view. When the cabinet was closed, he would assume the position and begin the game. When it was time to make his move, the chess master below utilized a complex pantograph, which was able to translate his finger and hand movements to that of the Turks, picking up pieces on an identical board within the cabinet below and placing them back down to complete a turn. But how did the chess...
Okay, even if that was a scam at the end of the day, I would still say that that sounds hella impressive. Like, out of everything, that shit is hella impressive, you know?
Chess master know exactly where his opponent's pieces were? Fucking magnets. That's how that works. The live chessboard was positioned directly above the chess master's head. Attached to each space was a small magnet on a copper wire. Dimly lit with just a single candle, the chess master tracked movements of each piece as the opponent made their move. When a piece was lifted, that magnet dropped. The piece then picked up a new magnet in the new space where it was placed. The chess master would then copy this move onto his second chessboard in front of him to keep track of the whole game. Rinse and repeat until checkmate and you've got yourself a chess-playing robot. But you don't really. It's just a dude remotely playing chess. Still impressive, mind you, but...
Yeah, but he still outplayed everybody there. That was a really smart person.
not truthful to what was being claimed. Although pressured to continue showing the Turk around in many venues, Kempelen didn't want to keep up the illusion, so he dismantled it.
Okay.
But after the Empress bit the dust and her son Joseph II took over, Kempelen was ordered to reconstruct the machine and take it on a tour across Europe. There, it played and defeated some of the greatest chess players of the time. He even beat Benjamin Franklin. Though it's gotta be said that some famous figures figured the feature to be fraudulent. The weak and weary Edgar Allan Poe voiced his opinion of human players being concealed within the cabinet, which there were. The truth is, several different chess masters played the part of the Turk over the years. Why? Money. What, you think playing chess for a living put food on the table back in the day?
No.
No. After the European tour between 1783 and 1784, the Turk went back into storage. Kempelen also went into storage 6 feet underground because he died. The Turk was then purchased in 1804 by German engineer Johann Maisel, who improved upon the design and continued public demonstrations for a nominal fee, defeating even higher profile people like Napoleon Bonaparte, who actually attempted to cheat twice, only to be met with the Turk swiping off the board's pieces in retaliation. The tours continued until Maisel's death in 1838, where the Turk was put on display in a museum in Philadelphia in the United States, only for said museum to catch fire in 1854, taking the Turk with it. It was only then, after nearly 85 years of fooling the public, that the secret of the mechanical Turk was finally revealed in a chess magazine. But to be honest, by that time, no one really cared. They'd already moved on with their lives.
Definitely.
What? I wasn't lying.
But holy shit, still. I feel like still doing this kind of machine alone sounds impressive, right? But making it so somebody can operate it inside, that sounds even more insane. And just operating it on your own inside of it. Holy, that is hella impressive. I wouldn't call it that much of a scam. There we go! Holy. Does it mean it's time to say thank you for this one? Guys, thank you so much for watching this one with me. Thank you a lot. Thank you.